Hello guitar lovers. We're up to lesson 18, key of D minor, page 92 in the Roger Hudson guitar method. D minor has one flat. D minor is the relative minor of F major. So we have the same B flats that we had in F, B flat here, B flat here. So first position, you will have a 3rd fret, 3rd string note. Make sure you don't play any open 2nd strings. The scale in D minor, harmonic minor form, will have a C sharp, 2nd fret, 2nd string, and you also have a 4th fret, 5th string, C sharp. The C sharp will be the leading tone to D. Now, if you'll notice the last two chords in the D minor harmonic minor form, and go up and look at the last two chords in the D minor natural minor form, those chords illustrate the difference between harmonic minor and natural minor and really the purpose of harmonic minor. In the harmonic minor form, the C sharp enables an A major chord to be played before the D minor chord is played. A is the 5th chord in D minor. Normally, it's an A minor chord. So if you look in the next to last measure of the D minor natural minor form, A minor. Remember, A minor is A, C, and E. In the harmonic minor form, we have an A, C sharp, E. That C sharp constructs, that C sharp enables a major chord. That C sharp enables a major chord to be constructed, A, C sharp, E. At the bottom of page 92, we have a 5th position D minor scale, D natural minor form. We will start in 5th position. Your first finger will be over the 5th fret, 5th string. This is the same pattern that we played in F major. We're going to be starting on the 1st finger note, which is the D rather than the F. So here's the natural minor 5th position. Okay, that's a very, very practical shape. I've been using it a lot. The reason I'm using it a lot is because I really want you to get accustomed to using it, because it's very handy. There are many, many more patterns for major and minor scales all up and down the fingerboard, but I would really concentrate on a couple of different patterns, especially this one, because it stays in a fixed position. It's very practical. Later, and maybe in my volume 2 of this book, I'll go into more different patterns. At the top of page 93, we have position shifting between scale patterns. So here we're going to learn how to shift between scale patterns going into different positions. And most of the time you'll notice the shift will take place when an open string is played, or whenever it is possible to play the open string. Sometimes you have to shift when it's not an open string. So we'll start off in first position. Notice where the position shifts will occur. You'll have the first position here, and then you'll shift to fifth position. The first note will be a 7th fret, 3rd finger note. Remember, when you're in a position, the first note that you play in that position might not be in that fret where the position is. So, for example, when you shift to fifth position, that doesn't mean the first note in that position is going to be a 5th fret note. It could be a 6th, 7th, or 8th fret note. But getting in that position will help you to play those notes when they need to be played. We also go all the way down back to first position. At the end of the exercise, we'll go back down to first position, and then we'll end on second position to allow for the root position D minor chord to be played. If you'll notice, sometimes when you are shifting and you go into another position, for example, into the second measure, it might be nice to cut off the bass note right there. It actually doesn't sound bad, but you might want to learn how to cut it off by muting the note with your thumb before you start. So I'm muting the note, come down like that. Alright, at the bottom of page 93, I want to introduce you to complex time signatures. Sometimes this is neglected in beginner books, especially books that were written back in the 19th century, early 20th century. Even in some that are into the late 20th century, sort of neglect this because most of the music is centered around European art music, which did not have a whole lot of complex time signatures such as 7/8, 5/8, 5/4. However, in our modern world, we're exposed to lots of different types of music from all over the world, and also some of the more modern music, non-classical music, and also some modern classical music has a lot more complex time signatures, and also some modern rock music and jazz has complex time signatures. So I figured that I would introduce this to you. To add some rhythmic variety to a composition, some composers will use time signatures which are less common. In certain cultures, notably in Eastern Europe, Asia, and the Middle East, complex time signatures are regularly used and have been for centuries. These time signatures are sometimes known as asymmetric because they have unevenly stressed beats. Complex time signatures typically use 5, 7, 9, and 11. These numbers are usually subdivided into uneven groups. 4 plus 3 equals 7, 5 plus 4 equals 9, 6 plus 5 equals 11, etc. Kurumi uses a 3 plus 2 equals 5 pattern. So in this piece that I've used as an example, it's a folk dance from the Republic of Georgia called Kurumi, we have a group of 3/8 notes followed by a group of 2/8 notes. So 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2. So that the beats are uneven. So you have 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2. This will take a little bit of practice, and but I think you'll have fun with it. When you repeat it, it'll become more natural, and it won't sound strange at all after you do it for a little while. In Kurumi, you'll have to play a bass note with I and M, or MI in this case, playing alternation, and then you have some pull-offs. So start off slow, So when you do this exercise, you'll start off with M, and then when you repeat it, it'll come back to I because you have the pull off. And then it does the same thing on the fourth string. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2. Continuing lesson 18, page 94, we're going to talk about drop D tuning. One of the guitar's special features is the capability of changing the tuning of the instrument. This allows the player to access notes that would not be available in standard tuning. These non-standard tunings are called altered tunings. Altered tunings may also allow the guitarist to perform familiar finger patterns and movements while achieving a different musical effect with those patterns and movements. One of the most basic altered tunings is called drop D or simply drop D tuning. It is made by tuning the sixth string down to D while leaving the remaining strings in standard tuning. Remember, when using drop D tuning, notes that are played on the sixth string must be played 2 frets higher than normal because of the lowered sixth string. Now, the issue of altered tunings, I think, should be addressed only after you have learned how to tune your guitar in standard tuning reliably. In other words, you should be at the point where it's pretty easy for you to keep your guitar in standard tuning. Because when you go into drop D tuning, you're going to need to make sure that you can get back to your normal tuning, or if you do go to drop D tuning, you need to make sure that you're really in drop D tuning. So I've heard musicians doing this a lot. The altered tuning effect is pretty tempting to do. And I love doing altered tunings, and I especially liked it when I was younger, and when I played electric I would use a lot of altered tunings. And they're a lot of fun. You do get a different effect with them. The drop D is the one we'll work on today on page 94 so that we can play the Coventry Carol. And the key of D major and D minor, in this case D minor, drop D is very effective because what's happening is you can use the low D. Typically on the guitar, the lowest root note for D would be the 4th string D. It's actually a fairly high note, really, to be a bass note. In E, for example, an E chord, it was low E that you've got as your bass note. Well, if you go to drop D, then that D chord or D minor chord can also have a low D, which gives it a real full sound. Now I want to show you an effective way of going to drop D tuning. One of the things you do not want to do is you don't want to try to go straight from E down to a D, because typically what's going to happen is that 6th string is used to being an E, and it's been tensed up going, in E, standard E, that when you go to that drop D, it's going to still resist it, and it's going to have a tendency to go sharp. So what you need to do is basically take the slack out of the 6th string, and you do that by going lower than the D, go way down. Now, what's happening is you're going to try to come up to a D then. You're going to go way down lower than what a D would be. A D is only a whole step lower than an E, so you're not having to go too far. But what we're going to try to do, you can use a tuner, of course, an electronic tuner. But if you don't have an electronic tuner, you need to be able to do it by ear. So I would use the 4th string as your reference. Now, we haven't talked about harmonics yet, but now's a good time to start. Harmonics are when you just barely touch a string, just touch it, not press down, touch the string at the 12th fret, and then pick the string, let off your finger right after right after you pick it. It's called a harmonic. You can do that on all the strings. It gives you this chiming effect. You can also do it at the 7th fret. This is the only time you play your fingers right over the fret, is when you do a harmonic. And once again, you don't press down on the strings, you just touch the strings and then let off right after you play. So you can experiment with harmonics there. But I want to use harmonics as a way of tuning your drop D. So when you play this is a D. We want to make this note match that note. So you don't hit the harmonic on the 4th string, you just hit the harmonic on the 6th string. Now, you play that note, try humming it. Hum that note. Now try humming the note. Don't play the note, just keep humming that note. Now hit this. Now your voice goes way down. It should. The humming method, where you're matching a note, is a really good way to tell whether you need to go higher or lower on a string, because your voice will adjust almost automatically to whatever that note is. So, well, it's definitely too low. So let's start bringing this up. All right, now hit this note again. All that note, and then hit this. So this was the note that we hummed, and then this is the note that's lower, isn't it? So we still need to go up. So let's hit this again. Okay, now hum this note again, and then hit this one. We're still too low. So we're going to go up a little bit more. Now, we're getting so close here. Hum that note, and then hit this one. We're getting so close now that our humming is not going to be accurate. So we have to go to where we're really listening to the 2 strings. So play this note and hit this one. Have those 2 strings ringing together. Do you hear the wave? That wave is called frequency modulation, and it means that your 4th string and this note, this is a D, and this is pretty close to a D, but it's not. What you want to get is you want to get to the point where you don't hear those waves anymore. So let me illustrate. You have to have both of those strings ringing. You won't hear any wave if only one string's ringing. So both of them have to be ringing. Now, I want to do this again. Now those waves should sound slower. The slower those waves are, the closer you are to being in tune. Both of these strings, this one and this, have to be ringing at the same, called hertz. All right. Now, when you do this, and after about 2 seconds, it sounds like one string is ringing, but both strings are ringing, then you know you're in tune. There's a little bit of a wave, very slightly. Very, very slightly. I'm just barely turning this. This takes practice. That sounds like one string to me. All right. Now we can play our D minor chord. All the strings. Remember, D minor is D, F, and A. Okay, D major chord is D, F sharp, A. So what you have here is you have a, let's go back to the D minor, D, A, D, F. Remember, D minor is a combination of D, F, and A, so these are all within that formula of a D minor chord of the D, F, and A. D, F sharp, A, D, A, D, A, D, F sharp. Kind of a majority of D's and A's in there with only one F sharp, but that's how you can play with drop D. And that drop D is going to allow you to play a really full sounding D chord, or D minor chord. Now keep in mind that this note now is no longer E, so that if you were going to play this note here, this note would not be an F anymore. This note is now in D. So D to E is at a whole step or a half step. D to E is a whole step. That's 2 frets. So this is now E. What would this note be? This note would be D sharp or E flat. E flat. It's actually more likely to be E flat in this particular key of the Coventry Carol if we do come across one of these, because we're in a flat key. So this note right here is actually F now. This note right here is now G. So make sure that you do that when you have drop D. You're going to have to move your note up 2 frets in order to play what you normally played somewhere else. So okay, so that's a little bit about drop D tuning. Many different types of tunings. I used to know somebody that that's all they did was play altered tunings, and then they got around to the point where the normal standard tuning was unusual to them, and they started liking the standard tuning again. So it's you came full circle. But they are fun to use, and actually, if you're going to do a lot of altered tunings are where tablature does come in handy, because tablature or tab tells you where the note is. Whereas when you're note reading, it helps to have a lot of consistency about what notes are there on your guitar. Keep in mind, if you change the tuning, the notes that you're normally used to playing, they're not those notes anymore. If you if you change all the strings, those notes are really not there anymore. That's why drop D is a good one to start with, because the only one you have to worry about is the 6th string. All the other notes are all the same. Okay, so Coventry Carol. I hope you have fun with this one. You have block chords. Make sure you play your clear block chords. You have a melody that is embedded in these chords, so you'll need to bring those notes out. The melody is the stems up notes. Okay, that's the tune. Okay, so make sure those notes really come out. Some people will play. Some people like to try to play more rest stroke. Some people will roll almost every chord. So I would try. I don't recommend rolling every chord. You might want to roll certain chords. I have the symbol, the sort of the squiggly line there for the rolled chords. You see that in the 3rd line there, the big D chord, which is the 4th measure of the 3rd line. That's a roll with the thumb dragging across. Try to make sure when you do that, you come straight across the strings perpendicularly. Try not to play like this. A lot of times people play like that. I think there's a difference in sound. I think that sounds really full when you come straight across. Try to come straight across when you do that. You also have some moving bass lines. That sort of thing. So the bass lines move around quite a bit to add some variety to the melody. You have a lot of sections where you have a bass note that's moving, and then the melody notes are staying in the counterpoint. The counterpoint is the melody, is the longer note, and the bass is the shorter notes, rather than having the longer melody notes and the short bass notes. So there's a little bit of that, a lot of variety in this one. After I started working on Coventry Carol, I noticed a couple of things that I sort of changed from the fingerings, or actually added, that maybe were not in the fingerings. The last measure of the 2nd line is measure 11. I have this chord here that I don't have a fingering for it. I was originally playing it open, and I think it works really well if you play the E on the 2nd string 5th fret. That helps it from twanging too much. So when you go from here, just make sure you make a clean shift. I think that sounds better. So use that there. It also happens again on the 2nd page, the last line of the 2nd page, the first measure of the last line of the 2nd page. So it happens there. It also happens at the top line of the 2nd page when we do this. That little section right there, the 3rd measure of the top line on the 2nd page. I realize I probably should have had measure numbers on these, but it's okay. You know what I'm talking about. So I would opt for that E instead of the open 1st string. I think it's just a little warmer, and then you don't have to worry about the 1st string ringing. Okay, there are a couple other places. I think this section here. I think sometimes I end up doing this instead of that. It's really what I prefer, because you really should probably hold this down for 3 beats. That's a typo there. I don't have a dot. That should be a dotted half note, or that entire chord. It's actually the 2nd measure as well. That should be, so the melody 2, 3, the chord here, part of that roll, that should be 3 beats long, even though it's a half note. So I'll need to go in and fix that too. But anyway, just little things really. Just play very, very legato. Make sure that you connect the chords really smoothly, because a lot of times the melody is in those chords. This is homophonic texture. There's also some polyphonic texture where there's a melody against a moving bass line. But there's a lot of homophonic texture, which is chordal, and try to bring that out and try to connect those chords really well. See you in lesson 19. Do you want to go skiing? Do you want to go swimming? Do you want to go for a walk?